right now. I shudder a little, some at the thought of listing all that's going on in the world, in the hearts of so many these days. The decision and the killing of Breonna Taylor, the loss of possibly the finest jurist of my lifetime, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the loss of the vibrant, brilliant heart of lay-led leadership for the Unitarian Universalist Association for 4 years, Alondra Williams. All of these and so much more are on our hearts today. It's strange to be here in my office, my home office with you. As some of you know, I chose to go to the East Coast 2 weeks ago to surprise 2 friends for their birthdays. So now I'm in quarantine for another 7 days, but who's counting? And in these COVID times, 7 days could be 1 day, or it could be 56 days. It just depends on our mood or how things are going. The friends I visited actually while I was gone are both really kind, both not necessarily known for their displays of affection, but the surprise in my visit was enough to get them pretty well emotional. It was wonderful to do something fun for them. It was wonderful to do something surprising. It was wonderful to do, well, anything. So I confess, though, that there was a part of me that in planning my visit had just kind of had, excuse me, had just kind of had enough. The stresses, alterations, modifications, screens, the time at home, being worried about sitting on a bench when I go out, keeping my distance from others, skittering across the sand to the water to avoid getting a ticket. It all just kind of boiled over in a fit of airline ticket purchases and surprises, secret planning with life partners, and that decision, was time to celebrate something. Well, 2 things, as safely as possible. And sometimes things just happen that way. Now, I don't want you all to worry. I made a commitment to our board and to this church not to take any unnecessary risks in these times, so I did my homework. All of the adults I visited are medical professionals, and I cleared my visit before going. One couple are actually both fellows in pulmonary critical care, so I figured I was taking literally my life to experts in this virus that is ravaging so many of us across the globe right now, which is yet another thing to be thinking about for all of us, I know. Have you ever heard that saying, in times like these, life never gives you more than you can handle? I see some people nodding. It's a bit of a common saying. The more I think about that saying, though, through life, the more I feel like it's sort of a crock, you know? Of course, life gives us more than we can handle sometimes. To quote Katharine Hepburn, as more of us maybe should do from time to time, she said, "Life is hard. After all, it kills you." Yes, this world and the people in it, and the ways we are living in it, sometimes are vastly more than we can handle. And I know this looks different for different people. It might mean just, turning off the phone, closing the laptop, opening up some vegan ice cream and sitting down, even though that last email isn't answered, that last call isn't returned, and watching, I don't know, maybe some British murder mysteries. I'm just pulling an example out of my head, out of the air. But for many of us, it isn't like that. For many of us, life moving out of balance like this, taking on more than we can handle, has more powerful, deeper effects on us and our lives. For some, it means being overcome by feelings that make it impossible to function as we'd like to function. Sleeping because it's all that feels okay, barely bathing because it feels impossible, the cloud-filled night of the soul or the psyche that seems inescapable, no matter what we do. I know many of us are feeling or fighting some of these powerful mental and spiritual challenges right now. And many ways of feeling like we can't take anything else are expressed in ways somewhere between the ways of feeling or in addition to them. Yes, sometimes the book of life we carry is weighted as ponderously as a tome we could never, ever help to shoulder alone. It's just a lot right now. And this week, when our Jewish forebears and siblings sit with the book of life open, the names of those who will live through the next year are written there, and the names who will not live through the next year are written, inscribed in the book of death. And this week we know and remember all too well that sometimes life does give us more than we can handle. Life, as potent, as wonderful as it is also fragile and often passes out of human knowing or understanding. And life, at its most basic, is, after all said and done, is fatal. In each new year, after Rosh Hashanah and before Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the adherents to the Jewish faith consider how they are featured in the book of life. What might be on that ledger there for them to take care of? And especially the wisdom of Jewish teachings and the Hebrew scriptures encourage followers to atone for those ways they have wronged or harmed others over the past year. And in these times, the center of much Jewish life of the world, Israel, like a lot of the world, is in the midst of a public health crisis, the likes of which has not touched the worship lives of Jews as powerfully and profoundly as this for more than a few centuries. David Yosef, the rabbi for an ultra-Orthodox area of Israel, said that it has not been since the plague that Jewish history recalls such a wholesale disruption of worship life together. He recalled in an article in the Los Angeles Times that in those times too, in the plague times, worship life was held mostly outdoors or in the private homes of Jewish people, like the private home all of us are in now. And this year, all of Israel is in lockdown under a stay-at-home order. So returning again to the ways of protection of the past and returning again to the home, to the seat of the family, to the house of the body and of the soul are now necessary to protect the lives of all who worship and who mourn this week. And I know you join me in hoping that the remaking of this tradition this year will still bring balance to the relationships of those who practice this tradition. Indeed, if we just chose one relationship to try to set right before 6:06 p.m. local time today when the sun sets, we might all feel a little more balanced. Because I don't know about you, but I haven't felt really balanced in quite some time. Can I get an amen? But for the better part of the year, it feels like I'm kind of going in one direction, then another, and maybe I'll rest for a little while and then go in another direction. And sometimes I feel, somewhat balanced. And then sometimes I feel like balance is just an illusion I'm chasing across 6,000 miles, an ocean, and most of a continent. Can I ever really be 100% right with the people, all the relationships around me? Does our community, does this church fully balance out when new voices, new ideas, new life experiences join in the song we sing to the world? Well, that depends on what you think balance is, I suppose. Now, this is probably a small group, but has anyone here ever stood in fifth position in releve? This is a ballet term. It's when your 2 feet come together like this, then you rise up on your toes. Releve comes from the Latin for to lift up or to make relevant. So if you've never had this experience, just imagine what happens. Or maybe there you are in your home, you could turn off your camera or not, whatever, and just try standing on your tippy toes like this. You can try it now like I'm doing if you like. You'll find that if you do this, you'll sense different muscles all over your body are loosening, then contracting, then loosening again, just to keep you upright, to keep you balanced. It takes work to stay balanced like this. It doesn't just happen. It is the motion. and the action of your muscles that maintain balance. And this is true everywhere in nature. Even the earth itself tells us it rotates around the sun for a whole year. And only twice do the hours of the day and the hours of the night draw into balance. For the rest of the circuit of the sun, seemingly slow to us, but only a flash in the span of time, the day and the night are out of balance, with one taking over the other in the dance that makes our dreaming and our waking happen. But in these times, when it's just so much, when everything we have to deal with in our days feels like more than we might ever be able to handle again, even in the very sense of time so many of us have known, is starting to slip away, starting to change and alter in our own lives. During Friday coffee hour with Rev TJ, sorry, I name things now the way they're titled in Zoom meetings. So in coffee hour, I explained that friends of mine in the corporate world have noticed that when people completely space out on a meeting for work and are either maybe raking the lawn or helping the kids log into school or doing any of the other countless things we have to do around the house, people, when they miss those meetings, even important ones, their colleagues simply chalk it up to COVID times, and no one is really certain what day it is, so no one cares that much. I mean, it's going to be October next week, friends. It's like we're all feeling that it's a lot right now. I know. And so, I think it's good to have a solid day like today marked on a calendar. We're here together on this last day before the book of life and the book of death are closed. Our friends of Sophomore Rav, our neighbors at Temple Emmanuel, and friends all over the globe are preparing for prayers from the heart sung aloud and passionately to repair the damaged relations of the past year before the beginning of the next, to regain a connection to the divine, uncluttered by human failing and frailty, to make new, to remake what has been broken in the past year. And our own community draws together today to welcome fully the lives, the talents, the needs, the gifts of those members joining us on this journey. To renew our own commitment to one another, that this community as one of compassion, justice, and joy. To relive that time when we entered this community ourselves and weren't sure what we would ever make of it. To make new, to remake the very structure of the community we know and love. Because the work of bringing balance, of remaking what was there before, is the work we are tasked with every day, whether we remember we have a Zoom meeting about it or not. And that is why I was so struck by Jackie's song today. The image of calling out to a community when a member is lost or in pain, and some not being able to help, but to keep calling and to keep calling until one of the tiniest of the ocean's creatures devises a plan to rescue the lost member. A limpet has a shell that when you look at it is shaped very much like an eye, like glasses, and it sticks to things. It kind of just gloms on to things. And so the limpet, knowing itself and its gifts, fit into the plan to rescue the sibling who was taken by using exactly what it had, by using its gifts in the way that was best suited to accomplish the goal of helping to rescue our sibling. The limpet offered the perfect solution. And at times, it feels like it's more than we can bear. When it feels like a lot right now, but the book of life remains open today for a few more hours, friends. And the straining of our bodies, our hearts, and our minds to remake and balance how we are with others in the world, how we are as a community of the faithful, how we are as individuals, balanced or not. That is the work, the active engagement in the work we need to do to keep some measure of balance in our lives. Remember that even the object that provides all that any of us ever is and will be, the very earth that sustains us, is only ever balanced between the night and the day twice a year. Some days I feel like I can manage twice a year for being balanced. Though the way this year is going, that seems like a bit of a reach for some of us, I know. But maybe that tiny shelled limpet and all of its friends have a piece of wisdom for us. When it is a lot right now, when the strain of the world wants to topple us off our feet, we can feel the ways our own community celebrates new lives, who, in spite of all going on in the world and even in our church, join our community and say, yes, I will help. And a community responds, yes, we will help. And that is remaking our present, remaking our future. We can rejoice in the creative ways people who celebrate Yom Kippur are reaching out to their acquaintances, friends, and families. My friend in Israel or in Jerusalem tells me that amends and atonements are being made over email, over text, over telephone calls like never before, in order to bring balance back into their relations, a new way, remaking centuries of tradition, remaking relationships harmed, ragged and worn into the warm and the tender things they should be, remaking each one of our lives. And each one of our lives is made more precious today by the deaths that we hear of and continue to mourn. We are remaking how we see the world and our own future. For each one of our lives made more precious by the announcement of the approach of a grandchild or the announcement of a great-grandchild. We are remaking how we hope in this world. And for each one of us in our lives, it is made more precious by knowing one another. We are remaking this community with every meeting, every call, every way we answer yes to those in need, yes to those who ask for help. And in this work, never doubt for a second, we are simply remaking what is so good, so warm, so necessary, so flawed at times, and still so beloved. Every day remaking perfection. May it ever be so. Blessed be, and amen.